The liquid culture.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Wine Tasting 101 series of videos that I have planned for the next 2 months for the liquid culture. My name is Mitchell Sharrock. Thank you for being here with me today, guys. Today's episode, we are going to start off with a bottle of Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio, depending on where you're getting it from. Talk a little bit about Pinot Gris, talk a little bit about the producer for the bottle that we have today. But really, guys, the intent for this video and for the next 7 that are coming up is to give you guys a kind of a tutorial class on how to taste wine. If you've been following me on the liquid culture, you'll have seen some of the kind of preemptive videos that I've put out for you guys telling you a little bit about this, because what I want this to be is something a little bit more interactive than videos I've done in the past. So I've been putting out all the wines that I plan to taste in each of these videos so that you guys can have a chance to go out and find either the wine that I'm drinking, a similar wine, or maybe you have a wine at home that you've been holding on to specifically to drink while watching the video. So I definitely hope that there are those of you out there who are doing that. If you are, I would love to see some responses in the comment section of the video with what you're drinking, so that I can see who's drinking what. But guys, like I said, this is a tutorial class, so this episode will be a little bit longer than the preceding 7 episodes, but that's just so that we can get the format kind of understood and talk a little bit about that. And then the next few episodes, of course, I'll try and shorten up. I'm going to try and keep these around 10-12 minutes so that they're pretty quick for you guys. But really the intent for these videos is to get you guys leveled up with your wine tasting. I know that a lot of you out there are, you're getting into wine for the first time. If you're watching this video, I'm hoping that you're watching some of my other videos. You're starting to get your interest piqued in wine a little bit, but for a lot of you out there, I know that it's still something that's very new and something that can be a little bit intimidating. And I know that there are a lot of you out there who have kind of stuck to maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different wines that you always buy, that you know that you like, or at least you think that you like them. But you're kind of afraid to venture out, even though you do like wine. You've kind of had a little bit of trepidation on kind of venturing out from those bottles that you're used to. So the reasoning for this is so that you guys can start to taste wine with intent. So what I mean by that is the way that I taste wine, and really kind of something that's become second nature to me with drinking wine since I have gone through class after class and studying and all kinds of stuff, different blind tastings and this and that. I have developed this process of tasting wine with intent. And once I started doing that, I was able to start picking up on different aromas, different flavors, and picking out the different components of structure in a wine. And what that's done is it has made wine drinking much more enjoyable for me. I know that early on in your kind of journey towards changing your mindset on tasting wine with intent, it can seem a little bit like homework, but once you do it enough, I promise you it's going to become second nature to you as well. And the steps that I go through, you will start going through. It will help you discern more about the wine that you're drinking. It will help you elevate your palate and really kind of up your game in terms of knowing how to taste for different grapes, how to taste for where a wine might come from. And what that's going to do is enable you guys to go out and feel confident with buying new wines and be able to expand that library of wines that you go out and you purchase on a regular basis, because you now know what it is that you like. So that's the idea behind this. So the way that we're going to do it, it's going to be one wine. We'll do one wine in each video, and then my follow-up videos, if you've been watching, you know I've got a pairing to go along with it. Wednesday's videos are going to be for Pinot Noir. So the 2 wines I've got today, both from Signor Vineyards here in Fredericksburg, Texas. The one we're tasting in this video here is going to be their Pinot Gris. The other one, the Pinot Noir, for tomorrow's video. And even though Signor is based here in Fredericksburg, Texas, this is a collaboration winery with the Signor family and the Weisinger family based in Oregon. So they have a tasting room and some estate vines planted here in the Texas Hill Country, but a lot of their wine making is done with grapes from Oregon, But the beautiful thing about Signor, that I love about Signor, is that they do a really, really good job of labeling their wines properly, telling you where they're coming from, whether it's just from Oregon, whether it's just from Texas, whether it's a blend of both. And you can find wines both from Oregon and Texas in their tasting room here in Texas, as well as wines under the Weisinger family label, which is all Oregon wines. The two wines that the wine I'm tasting in this video and the wine I'm tasting in the video for the Pinot Noir Wednesday, both of them come from Rogue Valley, Oregon. So just to jump into it, guys, this is the wine we're tasting right here on this video today, Signor Vineyards 2017 Pinot Gris from Rogue Valley. So I wanted to start, and here I'll show this to you guys, and I'll show it in the Pinot episode as well, but look at that. All kinds of great information on the back of the label here. You can see clearly that it comes from Oregon, and they're not shy about showing where their fruit's coming from there. So love that. Get the Pinot out of the way, and we'll focus on this Pinot Gris here. So these videos I'm posting up to YouTube, but I will also be posting them onto the website under an entire blog post that I am going to continue building week after week. It's got a nice kind of base foundation to tell you about my tasting strategy, how I taste wine, so that you can kind of get on the same plane with me. But each week I'll be posting these videos with a little bit of a write-up about the grape varietal and the producer, and some food pairing, and kind of what we went through and tasted here on the video. So step one in the wine tasting process, always assess appearance. So that's step one. What's great to do for me, and again, total habit, but if I'm going through and seriously tasting wine, whether it's for a blind tasting or I'm trying to put together tasting notes for the wines that we put out at Ab Astris, or really kind of any sort of tasting with intent that I'm doing for any new wines, I'm looking at the color. So I'm pulling out a nice white blank sheet of paper, not blank always, I mean, but as long as it's white, and this is how you look at color. This is not how you look at color. You can look at your legs this way, kind of look at viscosity, and if it's clear, any sediment, anything like that, you can look like that. But to assess color, guys, you want to set it down over a nice white sheet of paper so that you can see through it. You're getting a good, nice surface area to look through. We can see on this one we've got really a nice light colored white wine. I would definitely put it in that pale straw color. Definitely not a deep gold. It is definitely a light colored white wine, almost water-like color here with that kind of pale straw coloration. I talk a little bit again in the write-up on the site that leads up to these tastings, but it's about more than just figuring out, is this a white wine, is this a red wine? It is about figuring out, okay, it is a white wine, where in the color spectrum does it fall? Is it that pale straw? Is it that gold? Is there green? Is there brown? All of these little nuances in the color help you kind of determine what this wine is trying to tell you. So yeah, really nice and clear, light color, pale straw. Now we're moving on to step two, guys, which is you want to get this wine swirled around in your glass, get it nice and aerated in here so that we can start to have some of those aromatics release up out of the glass. Now, Pinot Gris, it's not an ultra aromatic grape. It's not really known as one of those in that highly aromatic category with, say, like Riesling or Viognier, something like that. Really, Pinot Gris kind of a neutral grape overall. I mean, Pinot Gris is if you see it hanging on the vine, it's actually in that kind of gray, light purple color. So Pinot Gris really could be technically considered a red grape varietal, but is almost always made into a white wine, sometimes rosé. But Pinot Gris, guys, again, briefly, this is a grape that is grown really predominantly in northern Italy, where you'll see it as Pinot Grigio. You will see it in Alsace, France. Really incredible, beautiful, high quality versions of Pinot Gris in Alsace, France. You see it grown in Germany, where it's called Grauburgunder. And then you see it grown in the States as well. And it can range. Pinot Gris, and more particularly Pinot Grigio, it is the same grape. Whether you see it written as Pinot Gris or as Pinot Grigio, it is the exact same grape varietal. There's a little bit of contention when it comes to, like, say, if an American wine grower is growing it and they are growing it with the intent of showing terroir and making a really beautiful version of Pinot Gris, they're labeling it Pinot Gris because there's kind of a negative connotation with Pinot Grigio from Italy being kind of this bulk, headache-inducing white wine with very little character to it. Now, there are some Northern Italian versions of Pinot Grigio that are awesome, but really it's in Alsace, France, that you're seeing some of the best versions. Now, this wine comes from Rogue Valley, Oregon. Rogue Valley is one of the more lesser-known, smaller Oregon appellations, the Willamette Valley being the big predominant one that's well known for Pinot Noir. Rogue Valley is more southern Oregon, and that's where this Pinot Gris comes from. And you do see good quality versions of Pinot Gris in America from American producers, but you also see some of those bulk jug Pinot Grigios coming out of California and stuff like that as well. So when it comes to Pinot Gris / Pinot Grigio, you want to make sure you're doing your research when you're picking out a bottle and try a couple of different bottles because it is usually on the cheaper side. I mean, I think that this bottle here was somewhere around the $20 price range. And you can definitely find cheaper versions than that. So you can do a little bit of experimentation with your Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio. But again, not an ultra aromatic grape. So not a ton coming off the nose. I would say, though, with Pinot Gris, when you start to go along that kind of underripe or less ripe, colder growing regions all the way out to the more ripe grower regions like in America, you see a differing of the flavor and aroma spectrum. So the more underripe, kind of more old world European styles of Pinot Gris, more kind of lemon lime, leading into green apple, going into some of those more kind of maybe more kind of like Meyer lemon into white apricot, nectarine kind of area whenever you get to the more ripe, warmer growing climate. So this one is definitely in that more ripe end of the scale. So we're in America, New World, already considered a warmer climate growing region, and in Oregon we are in the Rogue Valley, which is in the southern part of Oregon, which is the warmest part of Oregon. So you're definitely going to be picking up on those aromas of those more ripe fruit characteristics. So it's written up on the site, but you guys will be able to hear it here in these videos and read it on the site. But when we're talking about picking up aromas with wine, I always want to start with a broad generic category. So I'm smelling in this wine, and I'm smelling more ripe fruits. So what do I mean by that? A lemon, a lime, that's not a ripe fruit. That's going to be a little bit lighter, crisper, more refreshing. You want to move into the ripe fruit categories. You're thinking about things like, if it is a lemon, it's going to be Meyer lemon, one of those sweeter lemons. It's going to be like oranges, more sweet citrus fruits. You're generally going to start moving into that apple character category. And with apples, you're thinking more kind of really ripe, not so much tart apple, but more of that kind of juicy, sweet apple, pear, tangerine, nectarine, white apricot, things like that. So try and find a category to think about more broad whenever you're trying to pull aromas out of a wine. And then you can really hone it down from there. So I'm thinking ripe, warm weather fruits, and I'm really picking up more kind of pear, green apple, that kind of nectarine, fleshy, kind of plummy stone fruit kind of thing, but not peach. Definitely more that white nectarine and kind of like an underripe plum kind of thing. Now, when I talk about ripe versus underripe, think about, quite literally, when you eat an underripe fruit, it's brighter, it's crisper, it's higher in acidity. Ripe fruits are more sweet. They're richer. So that's what I'm talking about whenever I'm talking about picking out things that are underripe versus ripe fruit character. So that's on the nose. It's mostly that kind of riper fruit, green apple, a little bit Meyer lemon, white nectarine, plum. So step 3, guys, we're going to give it the taste. First thing that I like to try and pick out whenever I'm looking at taste of a wine, whenever I'm actually taking a sip, the first step, I'm not looking for flavors. I'm looking for the structure. So when we talk about structure, we're talking about tannin, acid, body. Never really ever going to find tannin in a white wine unless it's like a skin contact, orange wine, some Sangnier Rosé will have some tannin, but really very, very rare for a white wine to have tannin. So no tannin here. Acid, so I'm drinking this wine. I know that it's a Pinot Gris. This isn't a blind tasting, so I'm not trying to like pinpoint a region or anything like that. But I'm drinking this wine, and I know already from the nose, it's on that more ripe end of the flavor, or kind of the riper end of the fruit spectrum. So I know this is probably a warm growing region Pinot Gris. When I taste it, it doesn't have that lip stinging, like really hardcore high acid that you would get with an Italian Pinot Grigio or with an Alsatian Pinot Gris. This one is a little bit more, I would say, medium acid. So what are we looking for with acid? We're looking for that mouth-watering effect. So tannin sucks the mouth dry. Acid fills the mouth with saliva. So just like eating something super sour candy or something like that, it makes you salivate. Same thing with wine. You're getting that same kind of acidity, and you can feel it on the sides of your tongue, you can feel it on the tip of your tongue, you can feel it in the back of the throat. You can really start to feel acidity all over the palate when it's a really, really high acid wine. This one I'm really just getting predominantly on the sides of the tongue. So I would say then body, this is, because of its ripe fruit characteristics, I would put this in the medium body category. Generally Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio is in that light to, I would say, medium minus to medium plus. So what do I mean whenever I say medium minus, medium plus? So when you're looking at the scale of light body, medium bodied, full bodied, in that medium category, a lot of times there's a little bit of gray space, so you want to have a little bit more to work with. So medium minus means it's somewhere between light and medium bodied. Medium plus means somewhere between medium and full bodied. Kind of like your medium well, medium rare steak. That little middle ground there between the two different categories. So I would put this one squarely in that medium bodied category. I think that the acidity is medium as well. Like we said, no tannin. So that's the structure. That was step 3. We have no tannin, we have medium body, and we have a medium acidity. So really kind of nice balanced white wine here. Flavor. That's kind of the last step here, is to determine, are those aromatics that you got on the nose, are they on the palate as well? So I like to take a sip of the wine and try and kind of breathe out back through my nose, kind of open my mouth up a little bit and see if any of those aromas are coming through on the palate. I would say that it is more lemon-limey on the palate than it was on the nose. On the nose, very kind of ripe fruit characteristics. On the palate, you've got some of that nice citrus lemon-limey thing going on, but it is kind of leaning towards that more medium-bodied mouth feel, going back into those ripe fruit characteristics. So I wouldn't put it to tropical fruit, which is generally kind of your far end of the spectrum of like most ripe fruit for white wine. But I would definitely say definitely in that ripe fruit, green apple, nectarine, stone fruit, plummy kind of thing. a really nice Pinot Gris from an Oregon vineyard. About 1,500 feet of elevation, Rogue Valley, Oregon, made by Signor Vineyards here in Fredericksburg, Texas. Now, I do think that the wine was for sure made in Oregon and brought to be sold under the Signor Vineyards label here in Fredericksburg. But again, they label it properly, so I'm not mad about it. I'm totally digging this Pinot Gris from Oregon. I think that this is a classic summer sipper. I think that this would be the perfect kind of nice summer salad wine pairing here, guys. I'm thinking about a really kick-ass 3-course lunch out on a veranda somewhere, and I'm pairing a glass of wine with each course. For that first salad course, I'm thinking maybe like a nice frise salad with some bacon, a poached egg, maybe some like shallot, honey mustard vinaigrette in there. I'm thinking that this Pinot Gris would really kill it with that salad and kind of get you revved up for course number 2. So really good little summer sipper here, guys. I think that Pinot Gris is definitely a varietal to search out in the spring and the summertime. But start tasting your Pinot Gris and your Pinot Grigios with intent. Play around with them a little bit. Again, they're not super expensive, so you can play around and kind of find some that you really dig. And try them from some different areas. Get some from France, get some from Italy, get some from America, and try and see what it is that really kind of suits your fancy when it comes to warm versus cool climate Pinot Gris. So, thanks for being here with me, guys, on the first episode of the Wine Tasting 101 videos, and we'll catch you in the second part coming up next week. All right. Oh, stick around. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Pinot Noir, geek time. Let's really geek out on some Pinot Noir. Later, guys.